How did Dewey view the relationship between ends and means?
An important quick answer is that, like Aristotle, he at least understands that once you have secured the ends, the means will constitute it, which blocks things like means justifying the justifying the end. Now he, say in artist experience, he'll distinguish means from media, where the media are things that you use to get there, but like the scaffolding of a building or something, they may be pulled away. Although even that isn't meant as a sharp distinction, because I suspect that a very experienced builder who looked at a well-constructed building would be able to envision, in fact, given the technologies of the time, the means, even the scaffolding as means to achieve it. Now, it's important to make a distinction here between ends in view, which are logical as opposed to the existential end actually achieved. The ends in view, in some sense, is itself a means. It's the role of ideals in society, for instance, and the like. So that the ends in view, the idea or the ideal that you might, the ideal towards which you are striving, would be constantly adjustable. He uses strong language sometimes about what would happen if someone would just march linearly. Has a lot to do with what Larry calls straight line instrumentalism. In another context, if you just marched linearly to the end and went right past other more interesting possibilities to secure better and perhaps more ameliorating ends than the ones the end in view in which you started out with. So there's kind of a constant adjustment there, a functional coordination, if you would, in which ends and views, in fact, are part of the the means for actualization. The existential end is whatever you get. You might start off with an end in view and get to a spot in that inquiry where you say, no, this functionally coordinates the situation, let's stop. Or the end in view may be constantly adjusted as you actually perhaps even secure the end in view and go beyond it. Functional coordination is what you're after. If we had time today, and we don't, we could dig in some interesting ways here, because of course for Dewey it was important to convert cause and effect into means and ends. But even then Dewey is very interesting on cause and effect. I'll quickly mention some work that I'm doing with a scholar named Jim Good that does a lot of work on Hegel and Dewey, because Hegel is in Dewey's background in some ways, important ways, he's a naturalized Hegelian. But in a certain sense, you don't have an end until you have means, and you don't have means until you have an end. And Dewey says things like that. He also says surprising things like you don't have an effect without a cause, which means in a certain sense the effect is the cause of the cause. And what's at stake here, I think, is actually functional coordination. You're striving to functionally coordinate and ameliorate some situation or another. Particularly important, I think, to your organization, which is certainly concerned, with global amelioration. Certainly the Buddhist tradition of ameliorating suffering. It doesn't mean that the ideal end is in fact what you can get in any particular context. And I think this is pretty important to Buddha wisdom. Actually, there's certain ends that in this context can't be achieved.